Hello everybody. Hello. So I just thought I would carry on with the memoir just for half an hour, just a quick one because it's early night tonight. I've been writing. My eyes look completely puffy because I'm absolutely glued to my screen, and I've just about finished the final story in 84 Rue Le Pic. I haven't finished Mariette's story yet. That's challenging, but I'm concentrating on this last one to get it finished. So at least I've got 9 done, ready, and I can go to the competition with that. I would like to get that 10th one finished, so I've really got to work on that. I don't know if anybody's here tonight. You've probably all gone to bed early. Let's just see where I am. Just get to the right bit in the page where we left. Where did we leave? We left Band of Brothers, didn't we? We left Band of Brothers. Yeah, here we did. Okay. So, is anybody there? Who's there? Hello. Okay, we've done about Joseph. We've told you all about him and his amazing cravat. And okay, so who we got on? We got Trees, because I can see a little doggy. We've got Mike. Hello. So, all too soon, this amazing soiree was over, and I was on my way back like Cinderella home before midnight, not wanting this dreamy evening to end, although hopefully with both shoes, as I only had one pair. My monsieur opened the door for me and then took me in his arms with a passionate kiss, a breathtakingly deep and moist kiss like I had read about in my mother's well-thumbed bedside paperbacks. This was to be the start of my short but eventually bittersweet love affair, which at the time seemed like a lifetime. The wheel was turning. A walk in the Bois de Boulogne with a rowboat trip on the lake, a picnic in the gardens of the chateau at Versailles, and a day trip away from the hotel to Senlis, a sleepy French town on the outskirts of Paris, in the countryside, which was a copy of the famous Notre Dame. We did it all. Amour was blossoming, as was my confidence in language, French etiquette, and romance, of course. I was halfway through my training and loving every minute of it, and so it was the next milestone arrived. My 18th birthday was the 24th of January 1985, and what a day that was. It started well with a bouquet of flowers and a glass of champagne. Tétinger, a familiar vintage. Oh, how that wheel was turning. And a cake from pastry chef André, who was wildly jealous and protective of me. Ending up with dinner in the restaurant at the Eiffel Tower. God only knows how I had fallen into the proverbial and come up smelling of roses. I was just a young girl from a seaside town in Yorkshire who arrived in gay Paris with not much money, one pair of black high heels and a posh dress, along with a camel coat and a bag full of dreams, who ended up spending her 18th birthday eating smoked salmon and drinking champagne at the top of the most famous monument in France. It was totally surreal as we rode up in the glass lift. In the twilight we watched as Paris, in the sleepy dusk of winter, opened to reveal a fascinating patchwork like a black and white photo on a stand outside a left bank bookshop. The squares and the rooftops and the buildings making the patches, and with the tiny fairy lights like threads joining all the special pieces together like a silken thread. My gift was a pair of handmade shoes from a shop called Laurent Mercadal on the Place de Victor Hugo. Black suede and with a delicate leather tassel hanging from the heel. They slipped onto my slim stockinged feet, and I swear I was transported to another place. Much like the women today who have a pair of Jimmy Choos or Christian Louboutins on their wish list, every chic and French woman wanted Laurent Mercadal. I almost forgot the bouquet of red roses from the florist next to the hotel, all wrapped in cellophane and ribbon. It was like something from the film Pretty Woman. The wheel always turns. I'm not winking at you all, I've just got a dodgy contact lens. Raunchy old bird. Sorry, I'm having to do a bit of a wink there. Okay. A couple of weeks later, our slippery contact Jean-Paul disappeared with all our accommodation money for the hostel, and most of the girls had to go back to college and with their stage incomplete, vowing one day they may return. Some parents had the money to pay for their daughters to stay, but I daren't ask mine, so I moved in with my French beau to a small studio apartment at the top of a very imposing building on the Rue Murillo in the wealthy 17th arrondissement. The fabulous house, not like our two-bedroom cottage in a small village back home, but 5 stories high with enormous windows and Haussmannian grandeur in one of the classiest parts of Paris. Just next to the Parc Monceau, it was only a stone's throw from the Arc de Triomphe. Joseph's brother was the personal assistant or secretary, as they were generally known, to the owner, an Arab gentleman who owned many banks in Paris and who only visited a couple of times a year. Clearly taking full advantage of this cushy number, he used the studio only when his boss came to visit, living permanently on the main floor with all the luxury, and gave us his studio flat at the top of the house. We had a cute little kitchen which overlooked the rooftops, and I loved sitting sipping my morning tea and watching the hustle and bustle of the residents coming and going. Traffic wardens slapping tickets on the cars of the residents and guests who had slept late and not put a franc in the machine in time. Everything was seen by the gardiens sweeping their pavements and gossiping. Anyone trying to gain access to these bourgeois residents would had to pass the little gatehouse in which lived ours, an old Polish woman who looked like Gypsy Rose Lee. I used to surreptitiously peep in, where I saw a velvet velour cloth on the table inside and a black cat lounging on the back of a worn old armchair. All that was missing was a crystal ball. She took a liking to me and called me ma biche, her baby dear, but she had the eyes of a hawk and knew everyone who came and went and why. Joseph's brother Sammy took full advantage of these opulent surroundings, as he frequently showed them off to a large collection of glamorous girls, blonde, brunette, tall or small. It was clear he was a playboy who shared his good luck and his good looks. On arriving in the large open entrance hall, residents would either walk up the stone stairs, crushing underfoot the duck-egg blue Aubusson woolen carpet to arrive at their apartment, or the lift, which was a small metal cage with sliding concertina doors, which hauled up and down noisily all hours of the day and night. Behind the large wooden double doors with enormous round carved handles covered in gold leaf, the apartment oozed luxury and power, especially the bathroom, which was all marble with a sunken jacuzzi bath and his and hers gold taps. Very avant-garde for the time. In the salon, the shiny wooden parquet floors were scattered with Arabian hand-woven carpets and rugs, and the windows were hung with the most beautiful silk fabrics I have ever seen. This was definitely the wow factor. On the walls, enormous canvases of portraits and landscape scenes in elaborate antique frames. Oh, how the other half lived. But it was the kitchen which became my domain. Basically, I was the unpaid servant to this Lebanese band of brothers. On my days off, I shopped in the market, cooked, did the laundry and served at table, while they all spoke in foreign tongues, and never to me. Then they spent the night gambling at backgammon, and I went to bed alone. I was mesmerised by this way of living, a new culture, a new way of life, very different from the one I had left behind in Yorkshire, and the wheel was turning. Rue Murillo was a beautiful, calm and tranquil street to live, often walking to work and passing the glorious iron gates of the apartment buildings, standing proudly behind. Their guardians sweeping courtyards, chatting amongst themselves, no doubt gossiping about their rich owners' comings and goings. The brass plaques on some of the gates denoted the presence of a private doctor or lawyer, some of whom had permanent drivers sitting in black Mercedes waiting for their instructions, sometimes there all day before taking their rich patron to dinner. 3 doors down were the beautiful golden gates, the entrance to the Parc Monceau. One of my favourite places to sit and just watch the world go by. There were not many tourists here, just real Parisians going about their daily routines. A businessman crossing the park with his Hermes briefcase on the way to the office on the Avenue Hoche. There were nannies with small charges in prams and pushchairs, willing the day away, stopping to let the toddlers play while they gossiped about their employers. There were beautiful banks of flowers and fountains, and sitting reading a book on my day off was pure bliss. First, I would start to walk the whole park around the perimeter, the gravel crunching beneath my feet, occasionally stepping over pine cones or cobnuts from the trees above, and on warm summer days the smell of jasmine and orange blossom followed me, its heady scent like the fragrance of a perfume I smelt sometimes as I passed the shops on the Rue Matignon. The wheel was turning. There was an elderly lady who at 10:30 a.m. every morning sat on the bench next to mine and tossed leftover baguettes and stale croissants to the hundreds of little birds she called her friends. She looked a little like faded elegance with well-worn shoes. Her lipstick vivid red ran into the creases around her lips, and her thinning white hair fell around her shoulders, unsure of its style. It was as if she had lived too long. Perhaps she owned one of the big apartments which was once full of family and friends, and now alone in one room, unable to heat the vastness, living frugally till the end of her days. She had an elegant shabbiness about her. Perhaps she had never been a wife or a mother, just a mistress, a 5 à 7. Frenchmen are renowned for their extramarital relations between 5 and 7 p.m. Many, like her in their latter years, cast aside for younger pleasure. I loved to wonder about the other people's lives. I really hadn't started to live mine like she had lived hers. Just then I looked up from my book as a line of little girls all dressed in school uniform with straw hats holding hands in twos passed by, the small ones scuffing their shiny shoes in the dusty gravel, the older ones pulling them along. They were going to school, but it was nothing like the little church school that I went to in the village back in Yorkshire. The wheel was turning. I would miss the park and the beautiful street I lived, albeit temporarily, but soon it would be time to return to England for a few weeks to complete my studies and see my exam results. But it wouldn't be for long. I would soon be back, and Joe and I would continue as before, except I would have a job and money and be able to buy some decent clothes and makeup and start living a little. I hated to be dependent on him and needed to build up a nest egg of my own. The wheel was turning. Chapter 7, Champs-Élysées or Bust. In Yorkshire, home was an old railway signal box which had been converted. There were roses, beautiful red roses, on the side of the garage which adjoined the red brick, ugly-looking house. It was on the edge of the village and surrounded by fields of dark ploughed soil in the winter and golden barley in the summer. We had pigsties in the huge garden and chickens running around the thin strip of land which led to the river. It was fun while I was younger and a place to escape the rows, the shouting and the slamming of doors. But as I grew into a teenager, it became unbearable. My stepfather, C.C., bought me a puppy, a little Jack Russell we called Topsy. He said she was mine, and we bonded, playing together, chasing her toys and running around the garden on warm summer days. Little did I realise that one day he would take her away from me. When he was drunk and angry, he would lock her outside all night, and I often cried myself to sleep when I was younger, hearing her whining and yelping all night long. Returning from Paris back to the village, I was filled with trepidation as the postman walked up the path. He was carrying a large brown envelope, which would be the key to my future. My hands were shaking as I peeled back the flap and pulled out the paper. Dated 19th of March 1984. Dear Miss Craven, we are writing to inform you of your final examination results for the City and Guilds London Institute Hotel and Catering 1 and 2 and the Wines and Spirits Diploma blah 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 pass distinction, pass commended pass distinction blah blah blah. Reference your work experience at the Bristol Hotel. You have completed to a high standard all tasks, and I enclose a letter from the head chef. We wish you every success in your future career, wherever that may lead you. Yours faithfully, Head of Catering, Scarborough Technical College. I had finished my stage with excellent results, distinction in fact despite the language difference. I was delighted, and so were the college. The first students to represent them abroad had not disgraced themselves. I was back working in the village restaurant for a few weeks to earn the money to go back to the apartment and Joseph as soon as possible. I would get a job and then I could pay my way and we could be together. I wouldn't be a student anymore, but a young woman with a boyfriend and a job and a proper life of my own. I was independent and raring to go. Life was for living and I was going to live it to the full. Soon it was time. Bags packed. My mother was crying her eyes out and I was feeling bad at this moment, leaving her behind with him. But selfishly I walked out of the door. The wheel was turning. I arrived back in Rue Murillo with my suitcase trundling behind me, and it was as if I had never been away. Joe and I fell into the same old routine, and I began searching for a job, knocking on doors. Non, désolé, no, sorry, they all said, and that much I understood. I walked for miles and miles and then arrived back in a big circle at the Hippopotamus, a steak restaurant at the Place Wagram, not far from home, just a 10-minute walk across the park. I was almost trembling as I knocked on the door. It was just before opening time and a tall blonde Parisian woman dressed in white pedal pushers and a fuchsia pink shirt with yellow sash came towards me looking like an explosion in a paint factory, and with thick shiny pink lips to match and big hoop earrings, she smiled as she welcomed me. Straight away she said that my French was not quite good enough for this restaurant, which was apparently mainly locals and businessmen from offices nearby, but she asked me to wait. She shimmied across the restaurant, hips swinging rhythmically to the music playing in the background, and made an animated telephone call. I had been given an interview at another restaurant in the chain where they needed English-speaking staff for the terrace and cocktail bar. I was to go to the Hippopotamus Citroën on the Champs-Élysées and ask for Veronique. We shook hands and I thanked her profusely, grinning and showing far too many teeth as I turned and left. The Champs-Élysées? Really? Yet again I was talking to myself. My head was spinning around, shocked and excited, but I had a chance to prove myself. I arrived at the interview the next morning with the director of the restaurant and another girl. We chatted and she agreed to take me on. I would be working on the terrace serving cocktails to all the foreign clients for whom English was the first language. The restaurant was on 3 floors. It was an exposition, a partnership with the Citroën cars and of course the Hippopotamus restaurant chain. It was built to compete with the pub Renault at the top of the Champs-Élysées. The restaurant interior had a red and black colour scheme and a sport GTI model of the car in the middle of the ground floor seating area with its headlights flashing and doors open and guests sitting at tables around it. I had never seen anything like this in my whole life. I met a lovely smiley Vietnamese girl called Ai who would show me around, and Tracy. We were les Anglais. She was from London, very cosmopolitan, with bouncy brown curls, a gravelly but posh laugh, and we would become great friends and have an adventure or two together. It was going to be good fun, and at this point the wheel turns again. Clutching my bag of uniform with instructions to return at 6 p.m. the following day, I remember at that time about my past. I was 6 and at ballet school. I was pretty but a little chubby, not fat, just chubby, and for the annual dance show we had to have a tutu with a coloured sash. I really wanted pink or even orange, but I got fluorescent yellow, and this time history was repeating itself and that bloody wheel was turning. All the French girls had jolly colours, pink, blue, orange, green, but me, the last one in, you guessed it, fluorescent yellow. The work was very hard but lots of fun, and I saw the Champs-Élysées in all its glory, especially the night shift from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m, the tourists, the wobbly ones who enjoyed one too many Kir Royales or expensive beer, the lovers in arm walking around Paris to see the sunrise, and the craggy North Africans washing down the street and sweeping away the detritus, getting ready for a new day. And me, I saw it all. At this point, the big boss was due to arrive for business and the race meeting where he had horses running in the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. We were all there. We were all living there, and he was staying for an unknown number of weeks, so I had to move out and find somewhere else to stay. Luckily, a friend of a friend's studio flat was available as she was working abroad for 2 months and I was going to be able to use it for free. How super, my own place at last. The address was in another chic quartier of Paris, again, this time not too far from the Trocadero, just along the metro, 114 Rue de la Pompe. What was it about 114? The wheel was turning again. How vividly I remember my time there. The studio was on the 7th floor with no lift. They called it the Chambre des Bonnes, or servants' quarters, and as usual, under the mat was the door code and a bunch of keys, one for the outer door and the cellar, the apartment, and then of course the toilet, which was on the 5th floor. And to open it there was a large iron key, separately hanging on a dirty piece of string. I opened the door with a creaking noise and there was the loo, with a light bulb hanging from a string, attached to which was a long thread of the spider busily spinning its web. Rue de la Pompe was busy and bustling and my studio was above a pet shop. Sun entered the tiny window, heralding the start of this beautiful new day and a new part of my journey. I had left my Jack Russell, Topsy, and Pussy, my cuddly kitten, at home back in Yorkshire, and I missed them so much that each morning I passed the window and I looked forward to seeing if the cages were full. I looked in and there were 2 puppies. Their eyes were sad looking, and they were jumping around their tiny pen, yelping, and the small bichon frise seemed to tap on the window. Its little paw caressed the glass as if he wanted me to stroke it, but I couldn't. The kittens in the cage above rolled around and played happily, oblivious to the emotions they evoked, as I yearned to stroke them, but I had no time to think of home. I quickly walked on towards the metro and ran hurriedly down the stairs, clutching my ticket. The wheel was turning. At this point, I must introduce you to my granny Alice. Alice was a little lady, creeping to 5 feet tall, just. She had chestnut hair and clear skin, made shiny by the astral face cream she lavished on it. She had a mole on the bridge of her nose on which she perched her large glasses, which matched the colour of her hair. She wore a wide gold wedding band on her neat and well-manicured hands and a gold cross on a simple chain around her neck. For her visit to Paris, she came for 3 weeks. She wore her warm winter coat with a fur collar and matching gloves. Always elegant and petite, she was the light of my life, and I hers, and she called me her bright particular star. How I adored her. Having her to stay with me was a wonderful time. Even though I worked long hours, she seemed to come and go and enjoyed all that Paris had to offer. I was very surprised, as she seemed so reluctant to do anything or go anywhere since Grampy had died quite a few years before. This wonderful lady had also had a very interesting life and spent many holidays in France, wine tasting and visiting different regions, but had never visited Paris before. I had a friend, Kim, an expat who was working as a bilingual secretary at the Grand Moulin de Paris, a factory who exported French flour all over the world. She was the daughter of our local shopkeeper where Alice lived, back in the tiny village in Yorkshire. Kim was a young girl in her 30s and very religious, and a Christian like Alice, who took her to church, introducing her to her social circle of fellow churchgoers. They had a barbecue on the banks of the Seine, a breakfast in a hotel in the centre of Paris, and then one evening after work I joined the group for a traditional dinner after church. Granny told me she could only go out once a day, as the steps to my 7th floor room nearly finished her off. How we laughed as she huffed and blowed up the 7 flights, clutching bags of shopping, wearing stout shoes holding her swollen feet after hours of tramping the streets. She always walked as if on slightly hot pebbles, although now her step was laboured but happy. Joe had a day off the last week of Alice's holiday and took us to Fontainebleau for a picnic. We sat on the grass in the warm sunshine and ate pâté and cheese. Excuse me. With fresh baguette, all washed down with a chilled bottle of rosé wine. Sitting in the shadow of the spectacular chateau, surrounded by its immaculate parterre gardens, we breathed in the scent of fragrant herbs and flowers. Sorry, folks. A shad on a gorge. We breathed in the scent of fragrant herbs and flowers and marvelled at the box tree hedges and some of the highest fountains I had ever seen, showering millions of drops of water on the quiet mirror of the lake. The stone statues almost beckoning us to follow the trail into the woodland gardens covered in verdigris and mosses, like elderly women with young bodies, their youth captured in a moment, though they had stood for 100 years. Granny Alice liked Joseph, even knowing he was much older than me. He opened doors for her, held her hand gently as she climbed or descended the many stairs and steps around the chateau and gardens. Old-fashioned respect. He treated her with all the reverence given to a mother superior. Perhaps she thought an older man would take the place of Grampy, a protector, a gentleman, a best friend. But who knows? But she was always right about the fact that it would take a long time to find the one. And the wheel was turning. We didn't ever discuss our relationship. She never judged or gave an opinion where it was not solicited. However, I could tell by her smile when they met she was quietly happy about our relationship, and it had her blessing. All too soon we were in the jetter on the way to the airport, and I had to say goodbye to my Granny Alice. There were tears and hugs and promises to write. There was no mobile phones or Skype or internet in those days. I struggle now with airport departures, as this was the first time I had to say goodbye, as well as the fact that my supporter and my precious Granny Alice was gone, and I was not sure if I would see her again. It was coming up Easter in Paris, and in the patisseries and chocolatiers they were full of exquisite displays of chickens, eggs, and all manner of chocolate delights, tempting the Catholics out of hiding and their abstinence after Lent. For the Easter holidays, Joseph and I were invited to visit the family of his younger brother's girlfriend Danielle in the Alps. They had an old farmhouse above the village in Chambéry. Marcel and Danielle were a lovely couple. He was handsome with his coffee-coloured Lebanese skin, jet black hair and blinding smile, and she was very French. Her short, elegantly styled, blonde, greying hairstyle was every inch French. Her clothes were chic and her shoe collection was immense. We used to go to her apartment on the edge of Paris in Saint-Gervais-en-Laye, where I would have French lessons, and afterwards we would all eat together before Joseph and I took the train or drove back to Paris. There was a certain sadness about their relationship. She was a lot older than him, about 40 plus, and he around 30. Joseph explained to me once that Marcel had not always been faithful to her, and although he was madly and passionately in love, she could not bear him a child. Danielle was certainly not a suitable wife for his family back in Beirut, and so the relationship continued on and off for years. He focused on keeping her youthfulness, her figure and her beauty, and with him, with one eye always open for someone else. The wheel was turning. The Wednesday before Easter arrived with a map of France and bags packed into the small boot of an old Golf GTI we had borrowed. We soon set off, leaving behind the built-up areas of Paris, and drove south, taking the National Road 7 before our first stop for fuel at a tiny garage with a cafe on the edge of the motorway. It was boiling hot and the sun shone its heart out as we travelled further south. The journey took around 8 hours till we arrived at our destination, a small hotel in a village between Chambéry and Aix-les-Bains. The next day we drove to the farmhouse, following the directions that Danielle had given us, and as we sped up the long road out of the village we saw a sign and took a sharp left turn, and there it was, a beautiful old alpine farmhouse made from half stone and half wood, with a sharp roof and small windows along one side. In the courtyard there were different barns and buildings in various states of repair, covered in creeper and climbing flowers. Danielle came out to meet us, and everyone spoke French very fast, with smiles and laughter and animation. "Viens, viens, come and meet my family." She guided me to the house with a warm smile and open arms. The huge farmhouse kitchen was busy and bustling, and there were children running around and huge fat cats which lolled on the arm of a large chair by the kitchen range, watching with haughtiness as if to guard their territory. Madame Luceau wiped her hands on her apron. A woman in her 60s, she had a wonderful smile and kissed me on both cheeks. "Welcome, please welcome, come in," she spoke in broken English. Emily Luceau was a contented-looking, elegant lady, petite and slim, just like Danielle. They were the spitting image of each other. Mother and daughter, happy to be in each other's company and surrounded by her family. Danielle's brother, his wife and their 3 children who lived in the house next door, converted from the old fromagerie, and her mother, Madame Duflo. Danielle was the only one to have flown the nest for a cosmopolitan life in Paris with the chic apartment and a large circle of friends. The others had stayed close by, happy with their choice to remain where they had been born and would more than likely live till the end of their days. As everyone was chatting and catching up, I observed. Unable to understand everything, Joseph and his brother were laughing with Danielle's father Henri and brother Stéphane. The children ran around, the youngest one pulling the tail of the fat cat which spat and growled, and a chicken pecked around the farmhouse door. It was a wonderful atmosphere. For a girl like me, an only child, this was quite a daunting experience, and not at all like my life in Yorkshire. The wheel was turning. Madame Duflo was a very old lady, around 90, with a wide waistline and thick swollen ankles enclosed in dark-coloured stockings and sensible brown leather shoes. The tan skin on her hands was like crepe paper, all wrinkled with liver spots, her fingers bent and contorted, ravaged by arthritis, and her gold wedding band almost covered by the flesh bulging around it. The drinks were poured, aperitif before lunch. The men drank beer and the ladies kir, local white wine with a blackcurrant liqueur, and then we ate around the large wooden farmhouse table. Salads crisp and fresh from the garden with liberal coatings of tangy vinaigrette, then chicken roasted with whole heads of garlic and French beans, washed down with red wine, followed by a mountain of cheeses and baguettes, and finished off with a homemade cherry clafoutis. Cherries covered in a sweet, creamy egg mixture baked till golden brown. It was all delicious. Déjeuner en famille, the first experience of real French family dining. But how I longed to be part of a family like this. But this wasn't my family, and the wheel was turning. We'll just do one little bit more. Are you still there? Does anyone care? Maybe no one cares. Anyway, it's a good experience. The next day we went up the mountain to go skiing. I had no idea what to do. I was terrified but excited at the same time. It was the end of the season, but there was snow at the very top of the mountain. We were wearing shirts and jogging trousers with trainers. Forgive my fashion faux pas, but it was the 80s. I remember having these skis, long and wide like 2 surfboards, attached to my feet, which had been fitted with heavy boots, and then a couple of long thin poles were thrust into my hands, and we were off. It was gentle at first and fairly flat, just a few undulating bumps. The snow was like icing sugar, and we made trails in it, passing through beautiful mountain scenery and trees. This time it was just a short excursion, and afterwards we all went to a chalet restaurant high on the top of the piste. The entrance was full of antique skis and alpine memorabilia, and there was a huge open fire with logs neatly stacked next to it. The ash was piling up onto the wide stone hearth before it. We all ordered tartiflette, the classic mountain dish of potatoes, lardons and melted cheese. Salads crunchy and delicious, dripping with vinaigrette, and tarte tatin, upside down caramelised apple pie. I thought at that moment how amazing it would be if one day I could live in a chalet with in the mountains with snow and log fires. And the wheel was turning. The next day was Easter Saturday, and the ladies went into the village to collect the bread, patisserie and the rest of the food for the special lunch. It was the first time I had been alone with everyone. Joseph had gone to collect the wine with the men, and I was a happy observer. We were all given baskets and trolleys. We piled out of the car in the parking of the Place du Marché, and off we went. The queue for the patisserie was outside and down the street. Chattering voices, kissing, greeting neighbours and friends. The customers leaving up, armed with beautifully wrapped boxes of sweet treats, huge chocolate eggs and chickens finished with bows and ribbons. I was salivating with the scent of fresh baked bread, chocolates and tarts. Soon it was our turn, and Madame Luceau ordered baguettes, brioche, fait maison, and little macarons, together with a tarte aux fraises. We were going to eat well today. The next stop was the boucherie, and Monsieur Maubert, a short, stout man with elegant white hair and a white apron, stopped and burst into a huge smile. Et alors, Madame Luceau et famille? Monsieur Maubert grinned. Introductions, kisses and handshakes followed, and then a large parcel wrapped in wax paper was handed over, together with other small parcels. Money was exchanged and we moved on to the market. My trolley on wheels was soon laden down with ripe tomatoes hanging on the vine, very green salads, bunches of herbs, and finally a string of smoked garlic. To see if Napo wants to come in. Do you want to come in yet, Naps? No. No, he doesn't. It was sunny and very hot now, and it was collectively decided that we should stop for a refreshing drink at the Bar du Marché. It was only 10 a.m, so the ladies had coffee, and I had an orangina with citrus fruits and lashings of ice. It was just what I needed to rehydrate. I had never before or since liked coffee, especially the small, strong espresso, which was so popular. I was totally immersed in the atmosphere of this pretty French village, the convivial way everyone respected the traditional ways and greeted each other, and families were out together. The children playing at the feet of their parents, all looking forward to going to tomorrow's morning's mass, which would end with their chocolate eggs, for which they would hunt around the garden, looking in all the usual places, well aware of their parents' modus operandi. I was torn away from this joyous scene as it was time to go and eat again, and the wheels were turning. The bells of the Catholic Church rang out very early the next morning, calling the faithful to celebrate Easter Mass. Well rested, we walked up to the farmhouse, while Emily Luceau was, with the help of the rest of the family, preparing the large lunch. The delicious fragrant smell permeated every nook and cranny of the farmhouse kitchen. I think there's a fox. Napo's just gone bonkers. Shh! Napo, come here! Napo! Oh, bloody hell. I want to finish my paragraph. Excuse me. Dog alert. Napo, get here now. I said... Get in! God knows, what a noise. Terribly sorry, everyone. Come here. Yes, we can hear you dingling along with your little bell ringing. Shush. Shh. Sorry. He's just... Don't slurp your water. That's not part of the story. The door of the kitchen flung open with a flourish, and the men arrived armed with huge platters of lobsters, all shades of pink, arranged on crushed ice, decorated with wedges of lemons and pots of homemade mayonnaise. The aperitif was today served, and it was flutes of sparkling champagne, quickly drunk, as everyone was eager to tuck into the Easter feast. The table was covered with the best silver cutlery and crystal glasses, and tiny little sugar eggs were sprinkled everywhere. It was so lovely. I thought of being at home, of my childhood with Granny Alice, who would be cooking, carefully basting the large rib of beef, and me sitting on the floor in front of the big gas cooker, waiting for the enormous fluffy Yorkshire puddings to come out the oven. I had a stool near the stove so I could stir the rich gravy, but it seems 1,000 years ago flashed back over as the lobster plates were cleared away, and then came a whole leg of local spring lamb from a nearby farm, which had been spit roasted and reverently carved on the large wooden farmhouse table, decorated with sprigs of rosemary and whole cloves of the roasted garlic. Madame Duflo broke wind, and everyone seemed to be ignoring it. The children giggled, and then she wobbled her false teeth around, and the children giggled some more. It was a lucid moment of joy for this great-grandmother surrounded by her extended family, blessed with having been gifted such a long and happy life. All too soon the weekend was over and we were heading back to Paris and back to work. We had a great send-off with promises to keep in touch and visit again. Any time, they said. It never happened, and I have no idea what became of everyone, as this was not to be my French family. The wheel was turning. And the next bit is so good, I think we'll leave it for tomorrow night. So I hope you enjoyed that, folks. We're moving on. She's moving on is the girl. She's moving on. She's having some pretty fun times, but the wheel is definitely turning. So yeah, I've been writing, and I'm now up to 6,000 words, and I've got the most important, crucial part down. And I've just got to finish it now. And then I've got to check through all of the different stories and do a little bit of work on those. Who's there? Hello. Who's there? I love you still. Bless him. Cat, you're watching. You're watching live. Good night, JJ. Going to sleep, Mike. Good night. I'm not sure what's happening. However, the computer will not let me play your live stream. Dang. Lisa, hello. Oh, you're in Paris. You're in Paris while the love affair's going on, are you? Remember when I broke my ankle and I had to break the news to you after your last words were, don't you dare break anything. Off work for 10 weeks. Oh my God, yeah. Teresa was a great skier. I was, however, a totally crap skier. And actually, what is really strange is that in my future life, obviously, in the next portion of my, when I, like 7 years ago, when we arrived in the Alps, I'd just forgotten I'd been skiing once before, but I'd never ever had a lesson. I had no idea, and obviously when you're young, you don't have as much fear. I mean, we were just doing cross-country skiing. It was obvious. I wasn't flying down, it wasn't like Lilyhammer or anything. And so a friend of ours, Narwhal, who was a ski instructor and a guide, and she was absolutely fantastic, offered to give me some free ski lessons because we couldn't afford it. I mean, it was just like prohibitively expensive, and we're there to work, we're there to have fun. I know that when you're a ski bum, you go there and it's all about fun, party hearty, and the job's like a pretty, poor second. But we took it very seriously, and obviously, we were older. I mean, we were well into our 40s by the time we started doing that. We were the oldest chalet girls in Chamonix. But anyway, my first lesson fell over in the car park, and it was just on the ice, and it was like, this is not good. Not only is this not good, I'm just not confident about doing anything. And Noah would just go, she got me on the slopes, and like it was literally almost flat with a tiny little, and I was like, and she was going, relax. I go, yeah, okay, that's easy for you to say. And I was trembling. And then the one time I managed to do a full descent of the piste, I was coming back, sweeping, and I was doing quite well, and I was doing my turns and everything. I'd forgotten how to do the snowplow, doing my turns, and all of a sudden, my eyes focused on a nun who was standing, chatting with a group of people at the bottom of the piste, where you sort of turned into the little button lift to go back up again. I mean, God, we weren't in anything, we're on the children's section, for God's sake. And I could see the bar, and then there was these people, and then there was this nun there. And I was heading straight for this nun, and I thought, help me God, if I hit a nun and take her out, that's me. I'm never going to heaven. So I literally managed to turn the skis and whoosh, and kind of go flying past her, and her habit was all blown over the place, and her little wimple was wobbling. And after that, I just went straight to the bar and took my boots off, and I said, I'm not doing this again. I'm just not doing this again. It's just too stressful. So I just love to watch everybody else, and I was quite happy to do all sorts of stuff. I did go hang gliding, but that's another story. Paragliding with my boss as a tandem, and the takeoff and landing were total disaster, but the actual flying was just the most amazing thing I've ever done in my life. But I was just like a sack of potatoes flying off the mountain when we took off. And when we actually landed at the end, he was saying to me, you shift your bum off the harness, and you go, it's like 3, 2, 1. And then when you hit the ground, you run. Well, we went from 3 to 1, and there was no running. It was just like, I was just like a UNICEF parcel being delivered in the middle of a war zone, and I just crashed to the floor. My ankle was hurting, and I stood up going like this, hey, yeah, I've done it, like that. And I thought, oh my God, my leg's broken. And that was about as far as I got. But I did do it. And I did snowshoeing, and I went in a plane over the Alps. So I did some fairly cool things, but skiing was just not my thing. And obviously I wasn't privileged, and I didn't come from a family who had the money to send me skiing on a school trip when I was a kid. So I just didn't ever have that experience, I guess. Which is why, it's nice if kids can afford to do those things. In France, even, when I say poor kids, people from low-income families or, school children get to go on a paid trip to ski every year. And they have these like colonies de vacances where you go, and it's very cheap, and all their meals are included, and they get skiing lessons and everything. And they're all brought up on skis. And we used to laugh. Teresa, you'll love this. We used to laugh when there was one week in the season that was Paris week. All the school holidays in France are like staggered. So it's Paris, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, and then it's Marseille and Toulouse, and then it's all, and they're doing it in different regions. So different people, different kids have different holidays. And Paris week is hilarious. And please let me tell you, I'm not racist at all, but this is just to explain the story. They come from like the banlieue of Paris, where, they live in, these dreadful HLM flats, and sort of like, 26-story flats and whatever. And these black kids turn up. They're Africans. They're absolutely black as night. And there they are in the snow. It's like Cool Runnings, the Jamaican bobsleigh team. And they get out of the bus, and you see them at the station, because we used to work, our restaurant was just behind the station. And you used to see them getting off at the station to go to the Colony de Vacances. And they had these, like, obviously they'd been to Lidl or Aldi or whatever and bought their ski gear. And half of it didn't fit. And they had a varying selection of kind of colours. And they're black as night. And the skies, the snow is, like, obviously as white as snow. And you see them, and they're absolutely like fish out of water. And they're like, wow, it's snowing. And they just absolutely love it. But that used to tickle me a lot. And some of them were interested. They were there on their smartphones and playing their games and, rapping and everything like that. Weren't interested in skiing. Skiing was far too posh for them. But it was fun to see all the kids. And then they would go down on the luge, which was like the big, they used to piste bash, a proper sledging run. Like as we were kids, we used to go down on a plastic fertiliser bag from the farm, or an old tea tray or something. Well, they've pisted it, and they've got these big rubber inner tubes, and about 6 people jump in, and they go flying down the mountain. And that's all hilarious. They can all manage that. So yeah, skiing. So I said, when I was in, all those years ago, when I was 18, I said, I'd forgotten that I'd been skiing. And I kept saying, one day I'll come back here. And I sent it out to you. One day I will be here in the winter, in the snow with a log fire. And there we go. And so when you be careful what you wish for, because like as not, eventually, it might not come true straight away, but eventually you can bet your bottom dollar that most of it will. So yeah, Teresa was a great skier with her. Your dad used to ski, didn't he, Trees? And yeah, I remember when she was working for me, with me, the last thing I said to her before she went off on holiday was, for Christ's sake, don't you dare break anything. That was honestly the last. In fact, I must have had, I didn't really know I was psychic then, or a bit spooky. And I used to say things like that. I did honestly say quite a number of times where it was sort of a prophecy that actually came true. And I never thought, you joke about it. In the beginning, I thought, oh, I'm joking. But I used to say things like that and they always came true. I didn't realise at the time when I said it to Teresa that she was actually going to break her ankle and she had 10 weeks off work. 10 weeks. But 10 weeks when we had Richard Plews who came to help out. My God, that boy was amazing. Yeah, that's another story I'll tell you all about another day. But yeah, Richard and I got on well. We'd worked together when I was like 20. Hadn't seen each other for donkey's years. And for some unknown reason, he kind of contacted me on Facebook or through Facebook and said, hi, what are you up to? What are you doing? Where's your life taking you? And I said, oh, well, at the moment, I'm in West Sussex running a hotel. And he said, no, Joff. Where are you? I said, where are you now? And he said, I'm in West Sussex. And I told him the village. And he said, oh, my ex-wife lives down the road. And I'm just actually messaging you from outside her house, which is about 3 minutes away. And so we got back in touch. And a greater friend and a kinder man you will never meet. And he came and helped me out really big time. Came and helped me out a lot. Gave masterclasses to my lovely people in the kitchen. Tried to do motivation and with some of the college students. And he was just a gem. The guy is a legend. So yeah, we had a good team there. Just a shame we happened to work for. Anyway, that's another story. Teresa, so help me God, I'm going to glue my lips together. Can't be trusted, me. Anyway, who else is there? I'm going to say goodnight because it's late. And I really... Kat's here. Kat's in the house. Let's hope she's still watching. I love this. Mike Briarcliffe. Now, Mike Briarcliffe... I'll just tell you about Mike because I think he's gone now. It says good night, I'm going to sleep. So that means he's going to sleep. Good night, JJ. Right, he's gone. Well, Mike brought a group of people to the chalet where we were looking after a really lovely luxury chalet. And it was he was one of our last guests. And they were called the Peace Artistes. And these guys are all, kicking on 21. And I think there was about, I don't know, I think there was about 8 of them. And 10 of them. And every year they went for a ski holiday. Over 35 years they'd been together. An amazing bunch of people. The nicest guys you could ever meet. A group of fine gentlemen. We had the best time ever. It will stay in my mind forever. There was Ian and Alec and Mike. Those are the 3 that I really remember the most because we sort of really connected. And we had some rare adventures with them. They left an amazing review for us, which was fantastic. And then we carried on staying in touch. And Mike lives in Meribel, and very kindly last year he invited us to come over and have a weekend with him in his chalet. We've got a beautiful chalet in Les Alous, which is really pretty little village, not far from Meribel village. And so we drove over there, up the mountain path, 2.5 hours from Chamonix, and we took Napo with us, bless him. And we did the après ski, and we met them up the mountain. They were all skiing. We met them up the mountain for lunch, and we had an amazing time. We had a fantastic weekend. Really, really nice guys. So yeah, you do meet lovely people in your life as well. I mean, I have met some total bastards, but there we go, haven't we all, girls? I mean, anyway, got some amazing feedback about this afternoon's chat. Wasn't that funny? Honestly, so hush my silent mouth. Boobs, mosquito bites, and don't know where we were there. I'm so glad that, so Mike's put on here. I said, is anybody there? And Teresa puts me, and he said, and after I'm reading the bit, obviously, about the love affair, he goes, oh yeah, you're a raunchy old bird. Oh, he's lovely. He's a sweetie. He really is a sweetie. Lisa, are you still watching? You are doing an amazing job in the lockdown. Amazing. I'm telling you, you are. I just love the way you've got your little stall set out with your flowers and your chocolates and everything. I wish I lived. It sounds like a lovely, lovely community to be in. You've got some really nice people there. Lisa's an old school friend of mine. Jill. Is Jill watching? Jill used to work next to my shop. Oh, lovely Jill. And yeah, it's funny how life changes, isn't it? And we all move on and we all move around, and some people stay the same and we move around them. Teresa, what you saying? Ha, 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 you're braver than I am. Yeah, you did. You used to astound us at work with your sightings and prems. Oh, did I do it then? Oh, yes, you told me how I got a burn mark on my armour after you'd never even seen it. Yeah, maybe I did. Oh, maybe I did have that sort of gift then. Do you know, I can't really remember. Oh my God, so many spooky things have happened to me. Loads of spooky things have happened to me. Napo, what is the matter with you? Napo's making some rather strange farty noise. Napo, is that you? Oh! Napo, could you go out, please? Could you go out, please? Oh, God. I gave him a bone today. Oh. My dog has never broken wind. Never. Oh, that's putrid. I think I'm going to have to go. I really am going to have to go, because I'm going to have to go get some kind of essential oil and anoint myself with it. Oh my Lord. Napo's going to the vet tomorrow. Yeah, you certainly did. Napo's got to go to the vet tomorrow for a checkup, because I'm not happy. He's okay, but I'm not. Ooh. Maybe he's not okay. After his snake bite, for those of you who don't know what's going on, he had a very nasty snake bite. He was bitten by a viper on one of our morning walks, which is why we haven't been doing our morning walks. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, no, you're not even laughing. Honestly, it's not funny. I'm actually just thinking if I've got... Oh, yes, I could put this on, couldn't I, when the dogs... So the dogs just made a very nasty smell. Anyway, it doesn't fit because my ears are too small. Head's too big, ears are too small. Yeah, where were we? That's hilarious. No, it's not hilarious at all. It really smells. And actually, I'm going to have to go because it's really the pits. Yeah, he's sitting down now. Oh dear, this could be bad news. I hope he doesn't leave a parcel on the kitchen floor. Does this mean there might be a parcel tomorrow morning? I'm not getting up first, because if I get up first, whoever gets up first has to do the dog. But I go to bed last. Oh God, this could be a nightmare. It doesn't smell good, that. Anyway, no, it's not hilarious. Open the door. I have opened the window's open. Both windows are open and it still smells. Napo, you alright, sweetie? We'll see later, won't we? Bring out the kitchen roll. SW2, as they call it. Right, I'm off. Sleep well, because last night I didn't go to bed till 3. I was writing. I'm nearly ready to read out the final story, folks. I reckon by the time we get to the end of this one, I'll be finished with that and we can read the last story. So exciting. So, yeah, we'll see you all tomorrow. Night, night. Sweet dreams. Sleep tight. And what did my granddad used to say? Hope the bed bugs don't bite. Toodle pits.